We're gonna mix this throughout. All right, so now that we're back at this, one thing I wanted to mention was see how we've coated this already. What we need to do now is we need to rough it up so that we can actually, so that the new pour is going to adhere to it. Okay, so that's what we're gonna go ahead and do. We'll get technical. All right, so anything on the bottom that's gonna raise it up, we wanna make sure that that's gone. So we noticed we had a couple of pooling spots because this was on the downside. And this will be going downwards. So we want to make sure all that's off, and then so that nothing raises it up. And then when we go through the sander after the pour, should be good. It's mold time. Let's get that son of a gun into the mold and see how she looks. The melamine on the white background will actually give us a great view of what that river is going to look like. So we've got it in the mold, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take those clamps and we're going to clamp down each end of each slab. That will prevent the wood from floating when we actually pour the resin in. And also in our last video, you probably saw that we actually took and we coated the inside of that with mold release, so that when we go to actually pull it out of that mold, even though it's probably going to destroy the mold, it's still not going to destroy the wood as it comes out. Time to prep the resin. Alright, so liquid glass is what we have here. Alright, let's throw that son of a gun in there. So for this pour, we've calculated about 5 gallons. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 4 to start with, just to make sure we calculated correctly. And then we're going to we'll see what we have to add after that. But we'll see how good our math is. The ratio that we're mixing the liquid glass is 2 to 1. 2 parts resin, 1 part hardener. Not all resins are the same, so just make sure you follow the directions on your own resin that you're using. Now that we have all of the resin in there, 3 gallons, it's time to add the hardener. To make it a little bit easier, we just measured out half a gallon in this bucket before we actually had to do the pour. We have an open gallon sitting next to us that we're gonna throw in there as well. That gets us to our 4.5 gallons. Item of note, you'll notice that we're not just dumping it upside down. We're trying to minimize the splashes, especially since it's right close to the top. And there we are. right, here we go. The instructions say that this needs to be mixed thoroughly, but that it needs to be mixed for at least 3 minutes. We're gonna overdo it because this doesn't start curing for at least 24 hours, and then it'll take 72 hours before it's completely cured. So we're going to mix it for probably about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to make sure we scrape the outside of the bucket to make sure that we get all the resin and hardener completely separated so we don't have anything clinging onto the bucket. This is where we speed it up and add a couple admin notes so you don't have to wait through all that whisking. Once you're pretty well mixed, you want to take a stick and you want to scrape the outside of the bucket to make sure there's no resin that's just sticking to the outside. You want to make sure that that hardener and that resin's completely mixed in every part of that bucket. If you look close, you can see the resin and the hardener mixing, the different swirls, and it's kind of cool looking. My favorite part is where you throw the color in and you mix it in and you actually get to see what the color is in real time. That's pretty exciting. So, wait for it. Wait for it. Okay, let's speed it up so we can get to pouring. Oh man, that's gorgeous. Oh. Okay, so now before we pour that, we just got to make sure that we're level. Yeah, we can do it right here. It's pretty close, right? Do we need to raise it up?
I'm gonna bring this side up.
You have a shim?
Yeah.
Leveling isn't difficult. However, it is very important. The liquid that we're putting in here, the resin, it's going to be in there for about 24 hours before it even starts to cure. So if you're off by just a little bit, it could mess everything up. That is really fun to see. However, off the bat, I noticed that that's not the color we're looking for. But our plan was to pour this and see how it looked and then reserve some in the next pour. We were kind of hoping that this would fill the whole area. However, it doesn't. It looks like we're going to need to do not just a gallon more, but I think we're going to go with the rest of the resin. So that'll put us up to 6 gallons. So we're going to go ahead and mix that now. But before we do, I want to get a slow-mo of that stuff pouring. You know what this pour needs? More cowbell. Work with me, people. That's not a cowbell. All right, as Jonathan is mixing the next batch, you'll see that it's a different color. So because there's less fluid in there, we're able to speed up the drill. Speeding up the drill causes more bubbles, which causes it to look more whitish. But it's still clear. Those bubbles will come to the top. They'll dissipate. We'll knock them out with a hot gun, and we'll be good to go. But at the end of the day, we recommend keeping it at a lower speed so you don't have this problem. It's time to add some color. Here, in order to make up for the lack of color in the last one, we're going to actually have to overcolor. So we're going to go ahead and put it all in and see where it leads us. Okay, now that's mixed up. We got to let it sit for a little bit and see all those bubbles need to go away. Now we need to look at the project, the river table. Let's see where we're at. Now everything's kind of settled, and this is the color that it would have been if we didn't add the other color to it. It won't pose any problem mixing those two colors together. I think it's going to look great. And there are some of the knots that we'll have to fill as well. Just as a preview, that's what the wood's going to look like when it's finished. Pretty stuff. Alright, so one of the other steps that Jonathan's doing right now is he is getting rid of some of the bubbles before we pour.
Do that, wait a little bit, do it again.
As we mentioned before, we aggressively stirred this smaller batch, which in turn left a bunch of bubbles. So this is round 2, clearing those out. But it's not a bad step. The more bubbles that you get out prior to pouring, the better you're going to be. We're also going to do this step once the additions have been added to the table. This additional resin has been added to the table. Now we'll give it a minute to breathe before we go ahead and pour. That'll give the excess bubbles a chance to still make their way to the tops, just as one last measure to get rid of those bubbles. Okay, here we go. Look at that. Yeah, it's got some. Couple items here. You'll notice I'm taking this stick and I'm swirling it around, and that's really just to get a look at what the color is going to look like, because the amount of time that this takes to set up, by that time all of the heavier elements will actually sink to the bottom. So it's better to actually go back over this after, when it just starts to get kind of when it starts to cure, to go back over it. And here also you'll see that Jonathan is taking and wiping the edges. This is to ensure that there are no air bubbles on those edges. It's to ensure that if there's any air pockets or if there's any debris or anything that would prevent the adherence of the resin to the natural edge of the wood, that's all been sloshed around and moved. And you'll also notice that before, we didn't attempt to fill any of those holes. We knew that was the first fill, and we didn't feel that color was the color that we were going to continue with. And we knew that we were going to mix in additional coloring, and so that's why we did not fill any of the voids. So you'll see that once it's been mixed in, we've actually taken this and we've moved it out to fill any void, knot, crack. Since we're doing resin, we're filling all of the voids with resin, and that'll match nicely with the river in the center of the table. Look at that wood. Oh my word. Now that it's got the resin on it, it shows what it's going to look like when it's finished, and it is going to be stunning. Look at all that character, just character for days, and that river just highlights it. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. I'm super excited about it. All right, one of the last steps is taking the heat gun and clearing it up, and you can see that Jonathan's already touched this portion of it. As we move down a little bit further, you can see some of these air bubbles, and the heat gun actually works magic with these, and you'll see as Jonathan goes ahead and turns it on and starts hitting it with the heat gun, it really just eliminates those bubbles right as soon as it hits it. All right, let's get a last look at the table before we head out for this week. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you guys taking some time to look over our videos and check it out. If you guys enjoyed what you saw here, please go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'd love to have you as part of our tribe and to come along and see what interesting and new products and projects that we actually do. So we'd love your comment, love to hear from you if you want to comment, and also, all right, have a great week. Wait, P.S. I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know, so my daughter is, well, that doesn't help. That's what happens when your gimbal goes down. I'm just gonna finish this up, but I just want to let you know, my daughter is an artist, and I asked her to do an animation for us, so I'm super excited about it. We'll see what comes of it. I think it's gonna be great, but I am her dad, and I love her, and I'm gonna love it regardless of whether you love it, so deal with it. All right, hey, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.